Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today I have a very special guest back on for the second time, Sal Di Stefano. So if you aren't familiar with him, first he was on episode 120. We talked about TRT, his current training and nutrition. We also talked a lot about building muscle, so definitely go back and listen to that episode. But if you aren't familiar with Sal, he's a personal trainer and co-founder of Mind Pump Media and co-host of Mind Pump, an online podcast that's dedicated to providing truthful fitness and health information. And as I told him off air, it's also a podcast that was really instrumental for me getting into the fitness industry. So it's always nice to catch up with Sal. Sal, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, man. I'm glad to see you're still doing the podcast. A lot of people jump in and they end up stopping. So I'm glad you're sticking to it. It's great.
Yeah, I was never dawned on me. Like it never dawned on me to listen to a podcast about how to improve your podcast. And I think one of the things he was saying is that there's a ton of podcasts out there, but like people that actually stay up to date with it just dwindles down to like basically slim to none after they've posted in the last 3 weeks. So they get started, but they never consistently go with it. Just try to stay consistent with it, right? Learn the things from fitness and everything like that and apply it to this. I don't think I'll ever catch up to you guys, but yeah, I think you said you're what, 2,400 now at this point, you said?
Yeah, 9 years we've been on air, so about 2,400 episodes or so.
That's crazy. So I guess for you then, so we talked back in, I think it was early 2021 or early 2022. So about 2 years now. Yeah, little update on you. Anything been going on? Anything big in the last couple of years on your end?
My daughter was born about 15 months ago, so I don't think she was born when I was on the
Mm.
podcast. A little baby girl. So that's huge. Yeah, that's great. Other than that, nothing massive. We did launch actually, I should say, a course for trainers and coaches. So this is our first time creating a product specifically for fitness trainers and coaches. And the idea is to create a course that helps teach them how to build a more successful business and how to be more successful as trainers and coaches. And it's what we taught the trainers that worked for us when we would own or manage gyms. That's pretty new, and that's gone very well.
So for that course, is it more geared towards like new trainers, or is it really it doesn't really matter like where you're at, you'll find it helpful at any point in your
Yeah,
journey?
there's definitely segments in there for new trainers, but there's a lot of the information, most of the information is relevant to anybody who wants to improve their odds of success, who wants to build a successful career, helping people, training people through fitness and nutrition, both in person and or virtually.
Awesome. I know too, you guys had your programs, and I feel like you guys still come out with programs pretty regularly. I was one of the people that bought like Anabolic. I think Aesthetic, it just came out back in the day too. I grabbed that. So like any new programs for you guys or anything interesting on that end?
We're going to release a new program here soon, MAPS Performance Advanced, which is like our original MAPS Performance. So this is an athletic minded strength training program with a special emphasis on things like agility and speed and power. This is like the advanced version of that, which will be coming out soon. We also launched MAPS 40 Plus. This is a strength training program along with lifestyle hacks and tips for people who are over the age of 40. That a very popular program. It was the first program we created where it wasn't just the workout. We also put in there diet recommendations, lifestyle recommendations, and ways to offset a lot of the things that people notice as they get past the age of 40.
I'm just curious, what are some things in that program that would maybe make it a little bit different compared to your kind of normal programs that you would have?
The workout itself, there's some exercise substitutions. So squats are one of the best exercises you can do for your body, hands down. When performed properly, they build so much muscle, they speed up the metabolism. They're great as a side effect, great to burn body fat. Functionality wise, there's a lot of carryover that you'll notice in your everyday life or in sports. But the problem is it's somewhat of a technical exercise. So we put box squats in there for people over the age of 40, which is still a squat. The difference is you're taking out the portion of the rep where things that the highest risk is, right? Which is the changing the direction. So like you squat down with 200 pounds, changing directions, it temporarily is heavier as you have to fight the momentum and then reverse direction. And that's where people tend to hurt themselves. So we put box squats in there. That's one example instead of barbell squats. But then we also have lifestyle hacks. So things like cold shower in the morning, walking after every meal, going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day. And there's some also dietary pieces of dietary advice in there as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like the sleeping and waking at the same time, that's more like a kind of circadian rhythm type thing that you're focused on there, making sure people set that and I guess help them with sleep and everything. Is that kind of a common thing that you see people struggle with around that age range and stuff?
Definitely because, yeah, 40 people over 40, they typically have a mortgage, a rent, they're married, they have maybe kids, they have a career, more stress in general, more unexpected things can happen. Sleep tends to suffer. You see this in the data, especially after having children. And one of the most impactful things you could do to improve the quality of your sleep and really improve your health and your ability to burn body fat and build muscle as a result is avoid the jet lag that we all give ourselves every Monday morning. So this is we go to bed at the same time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, we stay up late because then we try to sleep in Saturday. Do the same thing Saturday so we can wake up late Sunday. Then Monday rolls around and our circadian rhythm has already switched. So now we want to go to bed 2 or 3 hours earlier than we were and then wake up earlier. And then, so we're jet lagging ourselves every Monday. And this has some pretty bad cumulative, negative effects on our health. So that simple thing right there, just that right there, it's one thing you can do that you'll see a big payback from it.
Yeah, and so my understanding too with that too, I don't know I don't know how like familiar you are with the research, but isn't there in the research it potentially it can like people notice like an increase in like hunger and things like that whenever they off like whenever their circadian rhythm get out of whack like that, or they're all over the place from that.
That's well established. If your sleep is not optimal, okay, your cravings for hyper palatable food goes up dramatically. So lack of sleep is a stress on the body. And for most of human history, if you didn't sleep a lot, it was either because you were scared of predators or because you couldn't find food. So your body will ramp up the hunger signal to get you more motivated. And so you're going to want to eat more for sure. It negatively affects your hormones in ways to store more body fat and not build muscle. In fact, there was a study that I talked about a few days ago where they took two groups and they controlled their diets and everything. One group got 5.5 hours of sleep every night. The other group got 7.5 hours of sleep. They put them all in a calorie deficit. They all lost weight, but the group that got the bad sleep, 2/3 of the body weight, sorry, 3/4 of the body weight was muscle, which was significantly higher than the group that got good sleep. So it's a big rock that you can tackle with minimal effort and get a big payback. And that's what we're always trying to do. We're trying to find things that people can change that are not super hard to change, but that will also get them this big results. Like why start with the small stuff or the little hard things that are not gonna give you much? Let's start with sleep.
Yeah. I mean, sleep one that I always see with clients that's often, and like you said, it really is, it just has such a like indirect impact on everything that, again, like motivation, like you said, hunger, cravings, all those things. So yeah, super important to get that dialed in. Yeah, that study, I'm super familiar with that one. And I always try to bring that up to people, especially in a fat loss phase, because when people do just focus on weight loss and they just want to drop weight and they're not really focused on anything they're doing, it's like, if you're not careful, you're not getting good sleep, you could be shooting yourself in the foot here and losing muscle. And that's obviously not what we want to do in the weight loss process. We want to try to maintain and build as much muscle as possible. I know you're super big on building muscle and maintaining that as you age and just throughout life.
Yeah, if you lose muscle with the weight loss process, you're gonna slow your metabolism down, making it very difficult to keep the weight off because now you have to eat very little to maintain whatever weight that you've lost. Not only that, if 3/4 of the weight you lost was muscle, you're actually fatter than you were before as a percentage of body fat. So you may be lighter, but now you're flabbier. So I don't even think I'm sure from an aesthetic standpoint, people wouldn't be interested in that. And then just building muscle in general. And I know people think of extremes like bodybuilders, but I'm talking about the average person doing it in a way that's sustainable and natural and all that stuff. If you build muscle, it's one of the best predictors of longevity is having strength. It also is a storage vessel for sugar and carbohydrates. So you want to have better blood sugar numbers or more insulin sensitivity. Fastest way to do that is build some muscle. So from a longevity standpoint, like this is where we need to go.
And two, with what was I going to say with that on the building muscle aspect of it? Oh, and if you do take these methods that you drop weight or you drop muscle when you're losing weight, isn't there some research showing too that could potentially like increase hunger as well too, and like you have a higher propensity to like gain that weight back because you're extra hungry from losing muscle? I don't know if you're familiar with anything around that.
Your appetite can get affected in a lot of interesting ways with too much stress on the body. But the big point to understand is if you've now slowed your metabolism down to the point where it's burning 500 less calories a day, You don't have to eat that much more now. Now what you ate before will make you gain tons of body weight. So you're really setting yourself up for a fail in the future, for a future where you're working out like crazy, eating very little, and you can't even go have a weekend away because you gain all of a sudden there's all this body fat.
Yeah. So I'm also curious. I know you mentioned too, like one of the kind of lifestyle things you guys implemented was walking after meals. Is that again just from a maybe insulin sensitivity standpoint, or is it more like down the lines of gut health and things like that?
No, we can go down the rabbit hole of potential benefits, insulin sensitivity. That definitely makes a big impact, right? As your body's metabolizing the carbohydrates and the sugars, the action of contracting and relaxing muscles makes them almost act like a sponge, sucking up that blood sugar. So it is good for insulin sensitivity. It's good for digestion as well. The hip flexors pass through the body and are around and over the digestive organs. And as you're walking, it helps facilitate digestion. But really, it's none of those reasons. It's because attaching walking or a habit to something you already do makes it more likely for you to develop that as a habit. So I already eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If now I want to start walking 30 minutes a day, the better approach, or the approach that's going to more likely lead to a behavior that sticks, is if I attach it to my 30 minutes of walking to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So now I go 10 minutes for breakfast, 10 minutes for lunch, 10 minutes for dinner. And as a trainer, it worked like clockwork.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So but again, it's one of those things. So mostly you did it for the habit stacking, but obviously there's additional benefits as well. So killing multiple birds with one stone there with that. So I'm curious on your sleep. I know you said you in the last year and a half you had your daughter, and then I'm pretty sure you had your son at least a year or two before that, I believe, from what I remember. I'm just curious, sleep during that time. We just talked about the importance of sleep. What's it? How's that for you? What are some things that have helped you get through that early stage there with that?
Sleep with new kids is terrible. It's going to suck. You can do, there's a lot of things you can try to do to mitigate it, like going to bed when they go to bed. I think sometimes, oh my God, the kids are down. Finally, we have some time to hang out or whatever. That's okay. But sleep is so important that when they go down, you need to go down. Trying to take naps if possible. But the first year, at least when you have a kid, you have to accept that this is going to be a tough sleep time. It just is, especially for breastfeeding mothers. Like that's brutal. And then it gets much better. So it is a season. But yeah, otherwise it's try to go to bed early, or when they do, keep things dark in the house right beforehand so your body gets prepared for sleep, and try to take naps if possible. Minimize caffeine past a certain point, type of stuff. Same stuff that I would advise for anybody who wants to improve their sleep.
So basically, hey, it's just going to suck and just try to do the best you can. Continue to practice those good kind of sleep hygiene practices
Definitely.
there. And just, again, understand that's just going to be a tough time. For you, was it just relying on your experience going, hey, I might be like a little less motivated during this time. I might be a little bit hungrier, but just working with that. And what is that kind of something that helped you during that time? Or,
I scale back on my workouts for sure, the intensity and the volume of them, because I'm not getting the same rest that I was getting before. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And as far as diet is concerned, I'm pretty disciplined with nutrition, but if I want something really bad, I'll get it. But I don't let myself go too far because I know that'll negatively affect me and my health, make my whatever remaining sleep I do have even worse. I try to all the controllables I try to work with to help with this. The key with exercise and diet is you should use it as a tool, and like a multifunctional tool to improve the quality of your life regardless of the context. The context being little baby, not getting good sleep. How can I use my workouts and diet to improve my quality of life? And so it's like stress relief from the exercise, not too much intensity, not too much volume. What about the diet? Easily digestible foods, throw in the occasional hyperpalatable food because you want a little psychological break. Keep the protein intake high because that tends to be recuperative for the body. Those kinds of things.
yeah, it's always interesting to hear how people manage that time. But like you said, it's just going to be super challenging no matter what. And you just have to work through that. So is there anything from like a fitness, nutrition standpoint, any studies or anything like that, that for you over the last couple of years that have come out that have really caught your eye or anything like that? And maybe we can do like 1 to 2 of each nutrition and fitness, if there's anything like that.
Yeah, there was one study that was really cool that we've quoted a bunch of times where they took two groups of men. I think it was a 18-week study, I want to say. And one group, the same workout, young men, the one group worked out every week consistently. And I don't remember how many days a week the workout was, 4 days a week, something like that. The other group worked out 3 weeks and then would take a week off, and then work out for 3 weeks and then take a week off. And then at the end of the 18-week study, they measured muscle gain or loss, fat gain or loss, and strength gain or loss. And what they found at the end of the study was the results were almost identical. So taking a week off after 3 weeks of being consistent for 18 weeks had no negative effects from a muscle building or strength performance standpoint. Now, I would argue that there are other benefits to working out besides those things that you'd be missing out on because you're not doing it that week. Nonetheless, I think what it highlights is just how effective strength training is and the sticking power that strength training provides, which is quite unique to other forms of exercise. That one really was a good one.
Yeah, and I guess with that, was there anything that like just so basically, if you need to take a week off, it's something you can do if you need to from like a mental standpoint. You don't need to worry about missing out on any games. Because I know for me personally, like back in the day, taking a week off like that would have been something that I never would have been able to do or feel good about. Like you said, it just gives you some flexibility mentally, and if you need to take some time off there.
Not just that, but if you're just super consistent all the time, you're probably doing more than you need, which in the long term, I'll argue, will reduce the progress that you make anyway. And most fitness fanatics are doing more than they need for sure. Like not just more than they need, too much. So I think that's one of the lessons from that study.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always nice to get that confirmation. And I still would imagine that for some people, that's still a very anxiety inducing thing to take some time off. But like you said, it's probably good to just take at least the lighter, back off your intensity or something at some point in time, because that's where you're probably going to run into some potential issues of just minor injuries, tendonitis, things like that.
And it's just, there's the value of doing the exercise itself, but there's a lot of different ways to be active. Okay. People who overtrain, they're just doing the wrong kind of exercise all the time. And oftentimes they're in the pursuit of getting better results. You'll get better results if you do less. Oftentimes that's the case. Oftentimes you're beyond the point where you've sent the signal for the body to change and adapt. And now all you're doing is you're digging into your body's ability to recover, right? You're taking away resources from recovery and you're making adaptation less of a signal and recovery the louder signal. Those are both different things, by the way, right? You can recover and not adapt, right? So recovery is healing, adaptation is above and beyond what your body's doing after it healed. And they can happen simultaneously, which is why I think we confuse them. If you're doing more than you need to, all you're doing is making it take longer for you to get the results that you're looking for. However, you like to work out every day and you're like, yeah, but I like doing this kind of stuff. Well, do things that don't compromise your recovery. Do other activities, other forms of exercise that won't compromise that. And now you get the best of both worlds. You get to be active every day, plus you get the best results.
And what would those things typically be? Just like maybe just hiking or things like that? Or does it just depend on like what your current kind of routine looks like and what that is?
Mobility, yoga, hiking. You could do even other forms, certain forms of cardio, so long as the intensity is like walking on a treadmill. I like mobility personally. I'm going to the gym and doing mobility movements with a stick or with my body is what I prefer. Trigger sessions, like you'll find in Maps Anabolic, that might be another option, like band based light workouts where you get a bit of a pump type of deal.
Yeah, good. What about on the nutrition side? Is there anything on there that's caught your eye over the last like couple of years or anything like that?
No, but I think that the case for a high protein diet just continues to be made, even when calories are controlled for a high protein diet, which in this context is about a gram of protein per pound of target body weight. Okay. So whatever your goal body weight is, that would be the amount of protein. That's showing to be incredibly beneficial for muscle growth, fat loss too. When they control the calories, and you'll have two groups of people, one high protein, one regular. The high protein group loses more body fat also, which is interesting. And it's also satiety producing, right? Fat loss is your goal. One way to get your body to want to eat less is by hitting your protein targets and eating it and prioritizing it. And what you'll find is your calories naturally drop.
Yeah, protein. Yeah, super satiating. That's definitely been something that's been helpful. And that's usually I see clients be pretty low on that when they come to me. This kind of brings up a good one that I was thinking about. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there was that kind of recent study that came out about how you can take up to upwards of 100 grams at one time. At least that's what they did in that study. Are you familiar with that one that recently came
Oh
out?
yeah, yeah, I saw that one. That's people think that's groundbreaking. I think because it countered what people saw before in other studies. So in other words, if you eat 100 grams of protein, the belief was that only a certain percentage of it would be used for the recovery adaptation process. The rest would get shuttled over and converted into glucose. But that never made sense to me because from an evolutionary standpoint, we didn't have refrigerators. So you killed an animal, you ate it. You weren't like, oh, I got to stop. You ate it, and the meat would go bad after a certain while anyways. It never made sense. This study comes out and it shows that you could eat a large bolus of protein and it'll continue to trickle through the body and be used for those purposes. But I don't think this study means anything in the sense that I've always told people, how much protein can I have? Whatever you can tolerate that doesn't negatively affect your digestion. So this study may say 100 grams, but someone may be watching, and when they eat 100 grams of protein, it's just too much at one sitting. So it's really about what can you manage from a digestive standpoint.
My understanding in that study too is they use like milk protein. So it's probably a little bit easier to get 100 grams of that versus like steak or chicken or something like that. It takes a little bit longer to digest. But like you said, yeah, for some people, they may not be able to get to that. But I think if anything, probably the big takeaway was if you can be a little bit more flexible with it if you need to. You don't need to like stress getting 30 grams at each, or don't go over 30 grams or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that study confirmed the way we've been coaching for decades.
Yeah. I'm curious to pick your brain on this, just to kind of hear your thoughts, because this is like something that I feel like these people go ahead, it's from a hypertrophy standpoint, it's been a talking point lately. And it's this kind of concept of like long muscle length training, length and partials. Are you familiar with kind of the talk around that right now?
Yeah, 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 I am. So what they say is that the portion of the rep that induces the most muscle growth is the lengthened portion, right? So if I do a curl, the shortened would be here, right? As much as I could contract. The middle would be somewhere probably over here. Lengthened would be way out here. And so studies show that when the muscle is loaded in a lengthened position, it causes more muscle growth than when it's in the other positions. But this is not an important study because all the positions build muscle. You may see the study and then avoid training in those other ranges of motion, which is dumb because they all build muscle. Also, your body gets strong pretty closely to how you train it.
There is
Okay.
motion.
So
Yeah.
I always train in this lengthened position. I'm not going to get a lot of strength in this other position here. Okay. So let's say you build the same amount of muscle, but now your body doesn't move very well because most of the strength you developed is in that lengthened position. It reminds me of the studies on rep ranges. There's studies that show that in 12-week study, 8 to 12 reps builds the most muscle. Yeah, but so did 1 to 5, and so did 15 to 20. And if you're training for longer than 12 weeks, it's probably a good idea to switch out and move to another one, which I would defend all day long. That's the best way to get just kind of consistent results. Yeah, that study doesn't impress me. But you got these social media influencers who are like, oh, train in the lengthened position. Here's an exercise just for length. Listen, they all build muscle. And you're not going to build less muscle because you're training the other positions. You're going to develop a more balanced, developed body by training in all of them. Makes no sense to just isolate it to one.
Yeah, because you'll see the pendulum swung really far on that, where it was like sort of range of motion, and then now it's do these partials, but make sure they're just lengthened. And you'll see it now where people will do strictly just that kind of lengthen position. For example, in RDL, we'll just do the bottom portion with it, not do the top part and spend time there. So and it's like the hot kind of debate right now, and it's probably good to include full range of motion, still train that shortened position, like you said there, get a good kind of balance of all of it there.
Yeah, it's not controversial. It's dumb. It's makes no sense. The only times athletes should train, not athletes, I'm sorry, people should train in specific ranges of motion is if they're trying to specifically strengthen or work on that range of motion because of either muscle dysfunction or they've noticed a sticking point in a lift. Athletes will do it all the time, but the athletes are very specialized. So you'll see a basketball player do quarter squats. That's because a full squat doesn't translate to basketball at all. They're better off, in fact, training that shortened range of motion at the higher levels. Maybe when they're young, you do full squats, but as they get older, then you want to be a little bit more specific. But no, it's not controversial. It's dumb. If you're training this way, thinking you're going to build more muscle, you're not. If anything, you're robbing yourself.
Yep. So just really train through all the ranges of motion there, and don't feel like you need to just do one part of the range of motion with that. One other thing too, before we kind of dive onto your training and stuff, I know like in the past you talked about cardio as, and again, I think you mean from a like fat loss perspective, it's not the best way to go about it. Have you, do you still incorporate like any sort of like cardiovascular training into your routine or recommend that to clients? Maybe not from a fat loss perspective, but just to build their overall cardiovascular health or yeah, what
But
does that look
yeah,
like?
yeah, for health, you want to be well rounded. For stamina or endurance, then yes, cardio is great. It's great for developing athletic type endurance or performance endurance. For health, it's good to move. So long as it's not abused or used improperly, it's very healthy. I don't do personally structured cardio as some people would maybe as people would define. I do workouts where the workouts themselves will challenge my stamina. So I'll push the sled, or I'll do a high rep set of squats, or I'll do a superset or something like that. Otherwise, I like to walk and hike. Although, like I said, at some point, I probably will incorporate other forms of cardio just for the stamina benefits. But yeah, from a fat loss perspective, it's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
It doesn't help with fat loss.
Yeah, I think it's important to put the context. What are you trying to do it for versus just saying cardio in general, right? So like for fat loss, there's definitely nutrition, just stay active is going to be the big thing. That's that. I wanted to talk to you about your training, just what it looks like now, nutrition, supplements, stuff like that. And then I want to just maybe touch base on how that's changed over time. I'm sure it hasn't been a massive change or anything, but what are your goals training and nutrition wise right now?
I just I've reached a point. I'm not going to get any more muscular or fast or stronger faster than I've been before. I don't think. I don't know. I'm always trying to progress, but I don't obsess over it, and I'm not overtraining. So I love, and really the bottom line is I love the process. I love training. I love training. I love starting my day that way. It makes me feel good. It helps me at work. It's good for my mood. I'll strength train about 5 to 6 days a week, and the routine can vary dramatically. Sometimes it's full body with maybe like some kind of stability or core on the days in between. Other times it's a traditional bodybuilding style workout, which is what I'm doing right now. Diet wise, I just I eat as much as I want. I avoid heavily processed food for the most part. And my meals tend to be around potato and rice and beef and chicken, fish, and cooked vegetables. I just feel best eating that way. And that's pretty much it. I'd say the difference with my training is I do less barbell squats and more barbell box squats, and I use the sled a lot. I get great benefit from using the sled. It's easy on my body. It maintains muscle and strength, and I do get a bit of a athletic performance benefit. I think because it's there's more stamina involved with it than other forms of strength training.
So do you do like push a sled or is there just different things that you do with the sled there? Or
Typically a traditional push, but sometimes a lateral drag.
gotcha. Cool. Training, you mentioned bodybuilding kind of style for right now. Cables, machines, mostly barbells, dumbbells. You're just get a combination of everything in there.
Yeah, I recently got a membership to a local, like, big box kinda gym, and they have a lot of machines I haven't used before, and I 90% of my training typically revolves around free weights, but I have access to all these machines, and so probably for the next few months, I'm gonna do a lot of machine training just for fun. So there's a lot of hoists and hammer strength and Nautilus equipment in there, and so I'm doing it, and it's just fun. I'm having fun training. I've been doing this for so long at this point. It's really about the enjoyment of the workout itself. So I'm going in there and doing kind of these bodybuilder machine-based type workouts, and then occasionally I'll come in here to our studio and then do my more traditional barbell and dumbbell workouts.
So just you doing a little bit more machine based type stuff. And again, that's mostly just because you said you haven't done it for a while and you just
I
kind of
have
have access
access
to
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
Fun,
Yeah. But when was the last time you did machine based stuff?
like I am now.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. I did a month of it or so a little while ago, but not much. For 15 years, I owned a wellness studio, and my equipment was a rack, barbell, adjustable dumbbells, and cables. And so I worked out like that exclusively. Then I worked out in my garage after we started Mind Pump, and in my garage, I had pretty much the same things. Exactly, in fact, your adjustable bench, barbell, dumbbells, a couple cables. So I typically always have worked out that way. Like I'm 45. I just turned 45 and I have fun, man. I have fun. I love different strength training tools and I love different machines too. So like when I go to a hotel, you'll see me on the machines in there because I typically don't use machines. So I'll try different ones. And like I said, this one I'm going to now, they've got such a wide variety. They also have lots of platforms with free weights, but they have such a wide variety that I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let me have some fun with this stuff. Let me stick to this for a little while.
Have there been any machines that you've caught on that you really enjoyed? Yeah, at the gym you're at now.
Yeah, I can't remember that. So I like hoist. I like hammer strength. I can't remember the name, but they have one machine brand in there that I haven't seen before, and I can't remember the name. Now I'm gonna be upset. It's UFC. So it's a UFC gym. You could probably look it up and see the equipment that they provide. It's very similar to hammer strength. So if you've ever used hammer strength,
Yep.
it's the plate loaded lever kind of system. I've been using that a lot too. And then the hoist has this cool equipment where when you move the arms or the legs, your body moves along with it. And that sounds trivial, but it produces a really good feel with the exercise. Every time my body moves, I feel like it puts me in a better position. So I'm having fun with that stuff too.
Yeah, those hoist ones, the first time I saw them, what the hell are they? It just looks gimmicky, but I personally never been able to use a hoist, but everyone I've talked to says they just feel really good and everything like that. So they obviously made them with some good intent there with that.
No, they feel great. It's got a great feel to it. So I think the best machines have that. And they're more bodybuilding focused. And when I would train people, I would typically focus more on free weights. But again, I've been strength training consistently for over 30 years. I love having fun. So I'll probably be here at this place for 6 months, and then maybe I'll go somewhere else and see what they got.
Yeah, yeah, that's it out. Like you said, just have fun with it. So it sounds like then maybe you are following some structure, but it sounds like you don't really have any like super hardcore structure to it where it's like, hey, I got to do this each week. It's just going in and feeling it. Or is there some sort of kind of structure where you are trying to do some like overloading and stuff like that?
There's always a goal. And I don't mean a goal like I have to hit this number, or there's always a target adaptation, I would say. So right now, it's more bodybuilding focused because I'm using these machines. So I'm like into the sculpting and getting the pump, and my rep ranges are in the 12 rep range. So I'm working on parts of my body to develop more than the others, just like a bodybuilder would. So that's the goal with it right now. And I'm doing it. Like I said, I'll probably do it for another 3, 4 months and then move out of it. And then what I'll probably do after in my split. And so because I do have a split. So it's like I walk in, I don't know what I would do. Like right now it's push, pull, leg type split, very, basic. But what I typically will fall back on is my full body 3-day a week routine. And I may, after this, do like a 2 compound lift and then 1 isolation exercise a day type routine. And then see what happens, see how strong I can get. Typically, when I train like that, my strength goes through the roof, which is fun. But at this point, I can get up there. Once I get my squats above 15 and my deadlift close to 600 or so, then the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I start to notice it just doesn't make sense. Even if I do everything perfect, if I'm off for a little bit with my form, holding 600 pounds, and I'm going to injure myself, but I'll get really strong with the full body kind of approach. That's my favorite, I would say.
Yeah, like you said, once you get way up there, it's like you said, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth putting all that kind of effort into just maybe seeing a little bit small of an increase in your numbers that you can lift and things like that? What about like what's your kind of bodybuilding style training? Do you ever incorporate anything like rest pause sets, drop sets, anything fun like that or anything? Anything
Rarely.
like that?
Pound
Really?
rep. Yeah, it's mostly just like most people need to train. It's straight sets, probably 95% of the time. The other 5% of the time, I'll do like a drop set or a superset type workout, or I'll do the occasional low volume, super high intensity failure type training. But 90 to 95% of the time, it's straight sets.
Yep, just taking those straight sets. Oh, I know last time we talked too, I think you were on TRT. Still on that? Any insights a couple years later into it now and anything like that?
No, it's still on TRT. I'll be on this forever. I also use peptides. So we work, mphormones.com is our link. And we have doctors there that prescribe, obviously, blood tests you for hormone deficiencies. And then you can also work with peptides. Because I have access to them and we are investors in the company and they also sponsor the show, I have unlimited access to peptides. So I don't know if that's a good thing because I do have a bit of a complicated relationship with things like supplements, but I've tried quite a bit. As of right now, my favorite is a combination of BPC 157 and thymosin beta. I really like how that makes my body feel. I do build a little bit of muscle on it, burn some body fat. Another peptide, ibutamorin, is a growth hormone releasing peptide. It's a mimic to ghrelin. And you want to talk about a mass builder. Like you take that and you'll probably 8 to 10 pounds on the scale, and you just get these really intense pumps. And it does make you hungry. That's the only thing, because it's a ghrelin mimic. But when I take that, I get crazy pumps and I get real strong and blow up a bit. And then I've tried the ipamorelin, CJC, growth hormone releasing type peptides, which were much milder. Let me think what else. MOTC was a phenomenal peptide. Love that. It helps enhance the function of mitochondria, improves insulin sensitivity. They call it exercise in a bottle. Obviously, that's not true, but that would be the nickname. But I felt just amazing on that. So I think that covers it. But yeah, I have dihexa for cognitive function, or CMAX for cognitive function, both of which are pretty mind blowing. Yeah, I'm having fun with the whole peptide space. So now I guess you would say I'm on TRT plus.
And so I'm not super familiar with peptides. So what would be like your quick kind of summary of peptides if someone doesn't really have too much knowledge around them?
I hate it when people say this, when people are like, what's a peptide? They're long chains of amino acids. That's so stupid. That didn't tell us much. That's what they are, but that's not. Okay. What's the difference between a peptide and a drug? A drug is a synthetic compound that has never existed in the body, that we have created to try to force actions within the body. So we identify a receptor on a cell. Now let's make a synthetic drug that we think will interact with that receptor and get the cell to do the thing that we want. Peptides already exist in your body. These are signalers, chemicals or signalers that we've already identified in the body that tell the body to do certain things. And so then we make them. We can either make a synthetic kind of version of it that works the same, or the actual peptide itself. And now what's different about that? Your cells know what to do when they get a peptide, because they always do that when they get that peptide, because they have that peptide in them anyway. That also means they're safeguards. So taking a drug, I get down regulation receptors and I can cause lots of things. With peptides, it's far less common. For example, you could take a growth hormone releasing peptide and you could boost your growth hormone to levels that you had when you were, let's say, 18, but you can't take enough of that you can't take more of that peptide to give you levels of a pro bodybuilder taking growth hormone, because your body will only make so much. It gets the signal and then any additional signal of that, and it puts the brakes. So that's how peptides work. They're very interesting. They've been around and researched for decades. The Soviet Union did lots of research on them. But the reason why pharma companies haven't really gone that route is because peptides are not easily patentable. So any compound pharmacy can make pretty much any peptide. But they're trying. I know that they're trying to find ways of doing this. But like a good example of a peptide is Ozempic, is that peptide that everybody's talking about that causes weight loss. It's literally the most powerful from a weight loss perspective. It's the most powerful medical intervention we've ever seen, with the least side effects and all that stuff. But is a brand name version of the generic peptide name known as semaglutide. Semaglutide is what's known as a GLP-1 agonist. This peptide already exists. So they give it to you, or you give it to yourself, self-administered, and then you signal the body to do things that this peptide. So I'll give you an example. Thymosin beta is a peptide released by the thymus gland that signals the body to heal. So whenever you wound yourself, you get muscle damage, like somebody hits you in the arm or you get a cut or something like that, your thymus releases thymosin beta to accelerate and to cause anti-inflammatory properties and to accelerate the healing process. If you take thymosin beta all the time, your body's getting an elevated heal signal. So what you find on thymosin beta is I heal faster, I recover faster, my muscles don't get sore, like that kind of stuff. BPC 157 is similar in its actions, very different peptide, but similar. BPC works more on connective tissue, tendons and ligaments. There's also a localized effect. So you'll see a lot of these longevity doctors that will inject it directly into an injury. They'll use like a MRI machine, see where the needle goes, boom, right on the ACL, boom, boom, right on whatever. And the healing of that is if you look at the animal studies on that, like you're talking about, you'll heal in 1/3 the time if you use BPC in the right way. So that's just a couple examples. So it's a really interesting space. Now, do I think that they'll impact you like diet and exercise? No, not even close. You may get like a 5 to 10% boost from peptide, which isn't nothing. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's not, oh my God, I work out. If I took peptides, then I would look like Mr. Olympia. It's not like steroids. And even steroids don't give people what they think they will, but they are interesting. And a lot of people now are using as preventatives. So there's peptides that improve or reduce the risk of cognitive decline, help with blood sugar levels and insulin sensitivity and gut health. And so it's really interesting, cool space.
I've heard of it. I've never done too much research into it. So I guess for one, I didn't realize semaglutide was a peptide. That's super interesting. I'm familiar with that. So is this something that's just gaining some popularity, some traction in the space? Is it just hard to get? Yeah.
Yeah, you can go places and get. If you want to definitely go through a compound pharmacy because there is a loophole in law where you could buy them online as research chemicals. Caution, right? Buyer be warned. You have no idea what's in the bottle, and if a peptide is off by one amino acid, it may have some signaling effects in your body that you don't necessarily want or would show up later, type of stuff. So you want to go with companies that provide them from a compound pharmacy who work with actual legit doctors that prescribe them for sure. But they're getting popular because of semaglutide, because all of a sudden there's this peptide that is take this and you'll lose 10 to 15% of your body weight. Like you're going to. No medical intervention's ever been that powerful. And it's not stimulant. So it's not, the previous ones were like fen or whatever, or methamphetamines that you take them and it's got this stimulating effect. The semaglutide is fascinating, by the way. We had one of the leading researchers on the subject on the show. And there's studies now and research showing that people who use GLP-1 agonists, they'll eat less. Okay. That's how it makes you lose weight. You end up eating less. But they also are causing people to smoke less cigarettes.
I heard that. Yeah.
Quit smoking or quit drinking, or they stop biting their nails. So the way that it works in the brain to make people eat less is not by suppressing appetite. It's by working in the brain in the regions or in the ways that help you with bad habits or impulsive self-medicating type behaviors, which poor diet is up there, right? People who eat really bad and suffer from obesity or whatever, it's there's a relationship pattern going on. The food is being used as almost like a drug, and there, of course, there's more extreme ways and less extreme ways. So semaglutide is acting in the brain to reduce that behavior, which is fascinating because I foresee it being used in mental health or with addiction. I 100% think that's going to happen. So it's really interesting space.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up. I literally just heard that, I think a week ago, the same thing, right? Where it's like, now it's like they're finding that it's helping people with addictions, right? But again, is that, like you said, is it because that's why people are eating less, right? Because maybe they, like you said, rely on food for that's their addiction, right? So I guess your kind of thought on those GLP-1 antagonists and stuff like that is, but what is it? Agonists, not antagonists, right? I'm assuming you're pretty much, hey, if somebody needs it, you're on board with them, or what are your kind of thoughts there around those?
My views on GLP-1 agonists is similar to my views on continual glucose monitors. Okay, so continual glucose monitor you wear on your arm, and it tells you in real time what your blood sugar is. So you eat a meal, oh, there's a spike. Oh, this food makes my blood sugar spike more. Oh, there's a crash, stress, whatever, lack of sleep, and how it affects blood sugar. If you have a CGM and you work with a coach or a trainer and they help you connect your behaviors to your blood sugar. In other words, wow, when I eat that food, I get this huge spike and crash. And right around that time, that's 2 p.m., man, that's when I was irritable. Or man, that's when I was falling asleep at my desk. Oh, so it was that food. By the way, it's so individualized. Like some people will get a spike with an avocado. It's got no sugar in it because for whatever reason they have an immune reaction. which causes the liver to dump sugar. So CGM, valuable when you work with a coach to help you connect the dots. On your own, no, it's just another tech tool. Same thing with the GLP-1. If you use a GLP-1 and you're not working with a coach to develop better behaviors, to develop a better relationship with food, to create new patterns and new disciplines, then all that's going to happen is you're going to go off and you'll gain the weight back. But if you're on it and you use it as a like training wheels with the coach and trainer to develop this new lifestyle, work, and then slowly bring the dose down and take yourself off, I'm a big fan.
My kind of understanding, people that really need it, right? Like for them, man, their freaking hunger cues and everything are so out of whack that like it can be a nice little tool for them to have to help with that. So like you said, making sure you are making the changes as well, behavioral changes and things like that, super important there with that, and not just relying on it to completely change your life essentially. So
100%.
So, real quick on the peptides, if somebody is looking into this, do you like blood work? Obviously, you said you have the doctors that you talked about, or where you can go. Is it, do they base off blood work symptoms, or what does that look like?
Blood work is not necessary for peptides, although they will recommend that you get blood work just so they could see if a hormone issue is also present, because peptides are not going to fix a hormone issue. Plus, you want to make sure that your health is that there's no potential contraindications, although that's quite rare with a peptide. But yeah, for example, if you go to mphormones.com, you'll set up an appointment with somebody, you'll talk with them over the phone, then they'll send you the information on it, you'll work with the doctor, and if you say, yes, I would like to go on this one and this one, then the doctor prescribes it and they mail it to your door. And it's self-administered. Most peptides are sub-Q injection under the skin with an insulin needle, although some are oral as well. So you'll get everything you need in the mail, and then you just do it yourself.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's super cool. And sounds like it's a pretty simple process. So we'll make sure we link that in the show notes. Last thing before I let you go here, what are some things outside of like fitness and nutrition and stuff that kind of help you stay like mentally sharp and gig and just overall health standpoint? What are some things outside of fitness that kind of help you stay like grounded like that and whatnot?
My spiritual practice. I pray 3 times a day. I go to church every Sunday, and I try to make that the focal point of my life and try to submit and live in the way that God wants me to live. And that's profound. That's had benefits for me that are incomparable to almost anything I've ever done. It's been a very strong focus, I would say, for the last 3 months. And the changes in how I am in my marriage and with my children, and even how I communicate on the show, have been absolutely profound. And now for people listening who don't have a spiritual practice or don't care to or whatever, the data on it is very clear. People who have a regular faith or spiritual practice, in other words, people who actually practice it, don't just say they do, but they actually do it. They're healthier, they live longer, they're less likely to abuse drugs, alcohol, smoke. They stay married longer, they're more successful, less likely to go to jail. The data is like clear that there's some real, so if you don't want to believe in the metaphysical or not, like the data shows like there's value here, there's something here. So I think everybody should take a look, at least consider, because again, the data is clear on that.
Super interesting. So, yeah, as you mentioned that, I was like, when I listen to my part more often, I don't remember you ever being like that. Is that something that's fairly new for you, or is that always
Yeah, my expertise is fitness. I'm going to focus on
right?
getting through fitness, but it's been a journey for me, and it's much more a part of my life now. Your question was like, what do you do aside from fitness and nutrition? And that's the first thing that comes up.
Awesome. Yeah, no, like I said, that's super cool. I'll definitely have to look into that. But yeah, I didn't think that was something that, again, maybe you just didn't talk about it as much or what, but it sounds like you said in the last 3 months, you started to pick up on that a little bit more. So
Very much. But you can go back in our podcast. You can listen to when we interviewed Bishop Barron the first time. That was when I really started to step into that. And that was a genuine interview. That was me asking him questions I wanted answers to. And that's when the door was open.
if I remember correctly, did you grow up in like a Catholic kind of family, or was that somebody else on the show? Was that maybe Adam?
We were like a holiday Catholics. So we'd go to church on
Okay.
Christmas, but really didn't practice. And then I became an atheist on my own, and then full circle.
Crazy. Yep. Circle on that. Awesome. Sal, we're coming up on an hour, so I appreciate your time. A ton of great information here. Before I let you go, is there anything coming up on your end that you want to lead the audience to, or where they can find you?
No, just check out the podcast, Mind Pump, and you can find us on YouTube or any platform that has podcasts.
Yeah, you guys are putting out 5 episodes a week, so crushing that. Still have guests on a couple times a week, once a week, or
Yeah, we'll interview people. I'd say probably at least 3 a month. We'll have interviews, and then the other episodes are us answering questions from listeners and talking about things like current events and stuff.
Great. Awesome, Sal. Again, appreciate your time, and we will have you on here again at some point. And thank you for coming on.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Great.